Hi there. I just got back from vacation and I've been going through the hundreds of comments, emails, and direct messages that I received during that time. I'm getting pretty close to getting caught up, but I keep noticing this recurring theme, especially related to Kokanee, where I get these same questions over and over again, people making statements about them like they're true, these myths about Kokanee that just are not true. They're very wrong and annoying and need to go away. So I thought today I would just go over what I think are the 5 biggest Kokanee myths. And I'm going to start with number 1, which is that Kokanee bite out of aggression, not because they want to feed. And this is absolutely not true. And I think one of the easiest ways to demonstrate that this isn't true is the fact that if you don't have bait on your hooks, you don't get nearly as many bites. I'm not saying it's impossible to catch Kokanee without bait. I definitely do catch Kokanee without bait. But overall, bait makes a really big difference. And if it makes a difference, then clearly they must be feeding to eat. And so this is a myth I always hear all the time. I think for sure the closer you get to spawning season and the more aggressive the males get, especially the bucks, you can definitely get them to strike things out of agitation. But even then, having some corn or gold maggot on your hooks when you're jigging, even in the fall, still you get way more bites. They definitely respond to the scent. Even when I've drifted like bobber and jig for them in river systems when they are spawning or migrating to their spawning grounds, having it tipped with some maggots or coon shrimp or something has always made a huge difference in my catch rate. So clearly scent and taste matters, and if it matters, that means that they're feeding. They're trying to eat. So I wish this myth would just go away. It's annoying and makes no biological sense because there are many things swimming around in the lake. They're not just going around and biting everything. So let's move on from that one. Number 2, Kokanee have soft mouths. And this one, for a while I believed this. I felt like, I'm losing so many fish. But the more different species of fish I caught and the more I caught Kokanee, the more I realized Kokanee are just formidable fighters. They're very squirrely on the end of the line. They're very good at throwing the hook, and oftentimes because we're trolling, it's not like we're setting the hook well unless you're using your boat to do it, which is what I do now. And so I think, that's part of the reason that people think they have soft mouths is because they throw hooks so effectively. But I think they throw hooks so effectively because they're very good at fighting. Their fighting style lends them to throwing the hook well. Also, I feel like Kokanee manufacturers use the wrong hooks for these fish. You need a smaller diameter wire hook, and you need to actually kind of set the hook a little bit before you reel them in. And of course, Kokanee rods aren't really conducive to hook setting, so which is why I tend to, especially when trolling, I tend to speed up my kayak a little bit and use the pedal drive system to set the hook for me to really drive that hook home. When I'm jigging, I'm driving it right in their face. I lose far fewer fish because I'm actually hook setting each time I'm jigging it. So this is a myth I wish that would just go away. Number 3, snubbers increase your landing ratios. I get this all the time, especially when I'll just have a run of bad luck and I'll lose a few fish on camera, especially really large fish. People are like, if you use a snubber, you'd land all those fish. I'm like, I don't think so. I have very limber Kokanee rods, which can absorb a ton of energy. I have monofilament, which is stretchy in itself. And I got a fish that's 100 foot behind the kayak that's jumping on the surface like crazy. And you think adding a little 4-inch piece of surgical tubing is somehow magic. It's not. It's snake oil. Maybe if you're trolling with bass rods, it might make a difference because it's going to add a little stretch. But have you ever picked up a snubber? They're not that stretchy. It's not like it's a slinky or something. It's just a little piece of surgical tubing. And personally, I find that they really don't do anything for me in my landing ratios. I've tried them and I've seen no difference. What really makes a difference is having the right hooks that are sharp, narrow gauge steel wire and driving that hook home, but also sometimes it's just hook placement. Do the fish get hooked well? And you're going to lose fish. It happens, right? So, no, I don't think snubbers actually increase your landing ratios unless you're using a broomstick. Then maybe it might work. All right, let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is kokanee are plankton feeders only. No. In fact, they are very opportunistic feeders like mini fish, especially in the Salmonidae family, and they quite heavily feed on larger invertebrates. I've seen them going absolutely bonkers for chironomids, those are midges, and mayflies when there's a hatch. I've seen them smashing things on the surface. I've seen them hard down on the bottom feeding, especially sometimes 10 or 15 feet in the spring, and they're down there rooting around, getting those chironomids which live in the mud, and they're starting to emerge. They'll go down there and feed on them. I'll even see they'll have like reddish like abrasions on their chins and bellies at that time of year because they're rooting around down there like trout do, and feeding on invertebrates. In fact, there are several lakes, one notably in Alaska, where they are primarily piscivorous. That is, once they hit a certain stage in their life, they're feeding on small fish. And in one of my tribal lakes, when they got really big one year, I actually caught one with a small bass in its belly. So yes, they will eat other things aside from plankton. They clearly love small hoochies and spinners. There's a reason for that. And the last one, it seems like a lot of people have this idea that, because kokanee are salmon and salmon spawn in river systems, that kokanee will only spawn in river systems. But they're actually, they are sockeye salmon, and sockeye salmon will readily spawn in lakes in many places. A lot of the Pacific Northwest sockeye populations, the anadromous ones, are lake spawners. And kokanee will do the same. Sure, they do run into streams and spawn, but there are many lakes. If they have suitable substrate in the lake for spawning, they will spawn in the lake. In fact, in Lake Pend Oreille, one of the ways they brought that population back is they went out and just dumped the right size cobble or gravel in various parts of the lake, and the kokanee just showed up and spawned on it, and it worked. So they will lake spawn. They're not just shore spawners. So this is why sometimes you'll see concentrations of kokanee on the fish finder, or sometimes visually you'll see them spawning along lake shores. They will spawn in lakes. All right, so that's my 5 most annoying kokanee myths that I wish would go away. Do you have any kokanee myths that you wish would go away? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder.